Now, I just want to say, I searched up how to make this while I was literally in the grocery store, and it came out so freaking good. But I'm not a chef. I don't know shit, okay? Before we start, I want to give a quick disclaimer that the following story depicts the murder of a young child. And if this is something that makes you very uncomfortable to the point where you cannot listen, feel free to click out. I have more tame stories coming soon. Now, I think for many 10-year-olds, you're figuring out what you like and what you don't, and you're solidifying friendships, which is so important to the development at that stage. But in this case today, the friendship in question between Jon Venables and Robert Thompson would prove fatal to 2-year-old James Bulger. We're going to start with the childhood of the boys. So we're going to start with Robert. He was number 5 of 7 children, born on August 23rd, 1982 in Liverpool, England. He grew up in an abusive home, and his father often beat his mother, siblings, and him. There was sexual violence also in the home, and we often see that even when the main abuser often leaves the home and is no longer present, the abuse still continues amongst those in the home. So even after Thompson's father eventually left, the boys in the home still beat on each other and bullied each other. As a result, his mother became very depressed, and she turned to alcohol and even later on attempted suicide. Now, in the case of Venables, I couldn't find any known records of abuse, at least not to the extent of Thompson's family, but there still was some questionable things. He was born on August 18th, 1982, and his parents were separated. His father was still present, but his mother was often found to be harsh on the way that she treated him. Like I said, no reports of abuse to the extent of Thompson, but she was, however, thought of as, quote, loose, as she was seen with several different men. But we do not slut shame here, so this is just research that I found out. The two were known to often skip school, resort to violence, and often cause trouble around the town. Robert and Jon were just known to be the most absolutely disorderly kids ever, so people didn't really find it concerning when they were playing hooky and skipping school that day. But let's get into James, the victim. James Patrick Bulger was born on March 16th, 1990, to parents Ralph and Denise Bulger, now Denise Fergus. He was what's known as a rainbow baby, a baby that's born after the passing of a previous one. He was almost 3 at the time of his death. Due to him passing away so early, I could not find much on his childhood, but his mother often described James as a bouncy, blonde-headed boy who brought absolute joy into her life. She often says that letting go of his hand was the absolute worst mistake that she could have made. But I do want to reiterate that none of this is her fault, and it's really just a mom blaming herself for something that she had no control over, and none of this should have happened. So just a quick pause. So when you're making a seafood boil, you're free to add anything that you want to. Some people usually put sausage in theirs. I totally forgot to pick some up from the grocery store, so that's why I don't have any in mine. But whatever you want to put in there, you just throw into a pot. Boil it all with some Cajun seasoning, paprika, garlic, salt, whatever you want to throw in there. But you mostly want that seafood taste. So seafood seasoning, throw it in a pot, boil it. Getting back into the story, Jon Venables and Robert Thompson were playing hooky, as I said before, around the Boodle Strand shopping center where James and his mother were. James's mom said that she was holding her son's hand around a store that he had kind of just been bouncing around, and she wanted to keep him under control while they were in a public space. She held his hand while they were shopping, and when she got to the counter to check out, she let go of his hand for what she described as a very short, brief moment. And I think many of us, like parents or like people who are around kids a lot, it really is just like a split second. Anything can go wrong. You let go of their hand for like 1 second, next thing you know, they're across the freaking room. You don't know what happened. And that's what happened here. Denise lets go of her son's hands. Before she knows it, he's gone. He's nowhere to be found, and he's in the clutches of Jon and Robert, and he's being led away from the mall. And Jon and Robert at the time, they're 10. James is 2. It kind of just looks like 3 brothers kind of just walking around, enjoying the store. Nobody is thinking abductors, like these people are kidnapping a child. They're thinking this is a big brother holding his little brother's hand and he's just walking him around the store. So surveillance video caught them, like I said, walking around and leading him away from the mall. This was captured on the afternoon of February 12th. Unfortunately, they would later on torture James and leave his body on a railway where he was unfortunately split into by an oncoming train. Just to give you a quick moment to process what I just said, I'm kind of just cutting up my onions here. This is for the sauce of the seafood. I wouldn't say I wish I didn't have done this, but I probably would have opted out. If you're gonna do it, make sure that they're caramelized. I'll just say that. But back into the story. Jon and Robert led James through the city for about an hour and a half, and I have a 1-year-old, so my son is tired of walking after like 10 minutes. So I just can't imagine being frightened, scared. You don't know who you're with, you don't know who these people are, and they're just leading you for miles and miles for an hour and a half. It's just really sad. James had a total of 42 injuries found during the autopsy. 22 of those were to his head and the rest were to his body. Because of this, the examiner could not determine which one of these injuries was the fatal blow. So it was ruled that his cause of death was the torture and then subsequently being hit by the train. Somehow the boys felt like they did nothing wrong, so they pled not guilty to their crimes. They were charged with abduction and murder. But it was revealed that they had actually tried to abduct another boy previously, but failed when his mother called him back after she noticed Thompson and Venables beckoning her son. Just to put more emphasis on how young these boys are, a special podium had to be built just so that they could see over the railing in the courtroom. During the trial, it was found that blood samples were matched between the boys. Witnesses, 34 of them, testimonies were given, placing Jon and Robert with James walking around the town. The trial began November 1st, 1993, and ended 3 weeks later where the boys were found guilty of all charges. To really give you a shocker and to make you as angry as possible, they were to be detained for a minimum of 8 years, which is wild because in the podcast, I go into a deeper dive of just what kind of injuries James sustained. For example, there was a hemorrhage beneath his skull because of a big blow to his head with some type of bar, and these boys only got 8 years. They were released at 18 with anonymity. They had the ability to change their names afterward. They could go on with their lives as if nothing happened, and nobody would necessarily know their crimes because they would be under aliases. However, this did nothing for both of them, as both of them reoffended. In fact, James could now face life in prison because of Britain's new law where it's kind of like a 2 strikes and you're out type of rule. So the public was outraged about this, rightfully so. Denise and her family still struggle with the aftermath of all of this, expectedly, and they were expecting another child during the trial. Denise did not attend, as she stated she couldn't even be in the same room, let alone sit near her son's killers. They gave birth to another boy, and she leaves the seat open for James at every holiday to honor him, and Britain still mourns James over 30 years later. And this case is just really sad, and it took me so long to get this uploaded because when I was researching, I had to pause many times. And like I said, I just could not fit just how horrendous and the details of everything in such a short form video. So I will be starting a podcast. I will be deep diving into this using this case, and I will give you much more information. So if you want to see that, I will put that link below in the description when I go into that. I am so sorry that this was so short, but may James rest in peace. I wish his family all the best, and really just keep in mind that this could happen to anybody, okay? I don't want you guys to get this idea that James's mother let go of his hand and she could have kept holding him and things like that. No mother should let go of her son's hand and find that he's missing literally minutes later and not have them returned back to her. Like I said, I wish you guys all the best. Best of luck. Love you all. Bye-bye.